Is 1 million Jasmy good enough for me? Now, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf, and even though that's not financial advice, I don't see why that's a bad amount. And let me explain why. Because let's say Jasmy were to hypothetically go to the price of $1 during this bull run. Now, of course, at that point, 1 million Jasmy would allegedly be worth $1 million. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, $1, that's a little bit insane, man. That's not going to do that. Okay, let's say we tone things down a bit. Let's say even 50 cents. At that point, 1 million Jasmy would be $500,000. Now, even if, let's say we tone things down a whole lot, let's say we reduce, that $1 price prediction to, 10 cents, let's say. Even at that point, 1 million Jasmy would be worth $100,000, hypothetically. Now, people may be thinking, okay, $100,000, what could you really do with that? Now, even though I get it, the prices of homes are very expensive, and in my area, you absolutely, of course, allegedly can't even buy a home with that, but the way I view it is that I view it as a very good down payment for a pretty decent home. Not to mention, I know some friends out there who have less than $50,000, and they've gone around the world traveling. Now, of course, people may be thinking, okay, that's may not be something that's too much, but really, they're not going to 5-star hotels or 5-star restaurants or whatever each and every day. That's not the case, but they're still able to travel the world, for a good amount of time, still have new experiences, meet new people, make new friends, just explore and travel the world. So if anything, I don't really view it as a bad thing, even if it, let's say, is like, 100,000 or 50,000 or whatever the case may be. But even besides that, ultimately speaking, I still have my sights on $1 when it comes to Jasmy during this bull run. And the reason for that is because I think Jasmy is a very fantastic project. And it's not like $1 is even that crazy anyways, before I explain what Jasmy is all about. Because if Jasmy were to go to the price of $1, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $50 billion. I get it, that's around 100x from here, but we really have to consider how something like Dogecoin reached over $80 billion in market cap back in 2021. And also that year, Shiba Inu reached around $40 billion. So I think around $50 billion market cap doesn't even seem that crazy to even begin with, at least in my opinion. However, even besides that, why could Jasmy hypothetically reach those heights despite the market pullback and despite the price not doing good whatsoever as of right now? I think a major reason is because it's clearly a project that has amazing fundamentals. It's focused on decentralizing data storage. And some people may be thinking, okay, who cares about data storage? Who cares about decentralizing it? Well, I do. And I think arguably a lot of people do care about it as well, because even if we take a look at the data storage market, it's predicted to reach nearly $800 billion in size by 2030, according to Fortune Business Insights. So that's a very big market right there. That's bigger than some countries' GDP, again, that market valuation. So the way I view it is that this is something that is actually very amazing, at least this market. Now, projects that are focused on this haven't really gained that mainstream attention yet, much like NFTs, DeFi, and blockchain gaming. But should it actually have more attention? I think so, even though probably it may not have the revolutionary impact, much like NFTs, DeFi, or blockchain gaming. Let me explain why. Let me just use an example here, right? In this case, let's say I'm going to use blockchain gaming. The blockchain gaming market by 2030, according to Granby Research, is predicted to reach slightly above $300 billion. I mean, just let that sink in. That is a market that people are very hyped about. And don't get me wrong, I do like blockchain gaming, but again, by that year, the data storage market is actually predicted to be worth over double that, right? So when you think about that, what should really have more attention, actually? I think arguably maybe something like the data storage market, because the pure numbers indicate that this could hypothetically be a lot bigger than blockchain gaming. Now, in terms of the hype, I think probably not, because of course, blockchain gaming is very revolutionary and it's something new. It's very exciting. It has that cool factor. Data storage may seem a little bit boring. It's a traditionally proven market. It may not have this revolutionary nature. So I totally understand that, but maybe this should have more attention, at least in my opinion. So again, if I believe in blockchain gaming, which I do, why wouldn't I not believe in a market that is predicted to over double it by 2030? This is just the way to take a look at it. And if you take a look at it, Jasmy doesn't have that many competitors. The market leader when it comes to this space as of right now is arguably Filecoin, but then Jasmy's number 2. And some people may be wondering, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Well, let's just think about this, right? Of course, there's Filecoin, there's Jasmy, there's Arweave, there's StoreJ, or storage, some people like to call it, but it's spelled like store J. But yeah, whatever, it is, storage, store J, tomato. But even besides that, also we take a look at JasmyCoin. So if I take a look at something like that, where are really the many competitors people often speak of? There's not that many. There are good competitors, like I think RWE, for instance, JasmyCoin, they're very good. Also something like storage or store J. Of course, they're very unique and very interesting, but then it's not like there's 20, 30, or 40 dynamic competitors like what we sometimes see with other markets. Like for instance, when it comes to DeFi, NFTs, blockchain gaming, there's many reputable competitors. But when it comes to this space, despite it potentially being massive in the future, there's actually not that many competitors. And something that is very amazing when it comes to these projects that are focused on decentralizing data storage is the fact that even though there's nothing necessarily wrong with data storage currently, because many people would argue, hey, it's very centralized, but then you know what? It's still working and it's still going to continue to work moving forward. But it doesn't mean that it can't be improved. Sometimes people like to tell me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in my opinion, improving, why not? It doesn't mean it's broken. And this is the thing. Through decentralization, data storage, I think, could arguably be better because no longer would it have these multiple single points of failures like what we sometimes see in some cases. Not to mention, sometimes with centralized data storage, we see sometimes, again, these entities controlling, a bunch of data. And sometimes people may not necessarily want all their data to, again, be controlled just by a single entity. Sometimes they want to see it, have more of a decentralized nature. And this is only logical, really, if I take a look at just the concept of decentralizing data storage, because if, let's say, I was hiding my treasure in 100 different locations, as opposed to I put all of it in just one location, I think arguably it's going to be a lot more difficult to access those 100 locations as opposed to that one location where I stored everything gets breached, then everything's gone, right? But then if it's like in 100 different locations, even if like 10, 20, there's still a bunch left. So again, decentralization just logically makes sense to me. Not to mention, Jasmy is legally compliant as a cryptocurrency in the country of Japan. So I do like that. It's a very good touch. And even as a result of that, people do give it the nickname of the Bitcoin of Japan. Now, is it necessarily Bitcoin? No, but then they just give it that nickname, right? Bitcoin of Japan, because of its quote unquote, I would arguably say, regulatory compliance. Not to mention, we take a look at something like Jasmy having a very amazing team. We take a look at its team is filled with many individuals who have worked at places like Sony and also KPMG, which is one of the big four accounting firms. So its team is good. It has amazing fundamentals, doesn't have that many dynamic competitors. It really is a no-brainer for me, actually, when it comes to something like Jasmy. And all I got to do right now is just stay patient, because usually altcoins, as a worst-case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. And the last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of last year, so 18 months would actually mean around October this year. Now, it's not a surefire date, but you know what? I want to pay attention to it nonetheless. And even Charles Hoskinson, who not only is the co-founder of Ethereum, but the founder of Cardano, back in November last year, he said 1 to 2 years from then, he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. So that's a best case scenario a year from November. So that's around November this year. So again, I'm more so paying attention to near the end of this year. I think the board is far from over. And how could it be over, really? I mean, there's over 600 million crypto owners. We take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption. I highly doubt that the most recent top that we saw was the actual top for this bull run. Of course, there's going to be the end to this bull run. I'm totally aware of that. But I don't think hypothetically it's over yet, which is why I'm still staying patient, continuing to accumulate hold. And I just wait because I think better days are ahead. And $1 million Jasmy, arguably for me, I would say it's enough. I'm not talking about $1 million, but again, just like $1 million Jasmy, I don't think it's so bad, at least for me. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciated. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.